Hello, this is Brian P., and welcome to Scaling the Well. So, today, dating for men. A lot of you have heard the Dating for Women podcast and then the original dating podcast I did a few months back. Got a lot of feedback on both of those. A lot of women told me that they really like the Dating for Women, and they're waiting to hear what I had to say about men. Dating for men to me is, I think it's a little bit more dangerous territory, I guess, for one, because I am a man and I have a dating history, and women can get very defensive about it. Men don't seem to be get that defensive. They kind of laugh, they kind of do this, they kind of do that. But okay, here we go. Let's just dive right into it. So, I'm in the last two dating related podcasts, I talked about the flip. We're going to talk about it again. It's basically, kind of a shift in power between men and women. Again, I think it happens at about age 35 here in the United States. But I wanted to just start right off with some of the differences between men and women. And again, this does have a little bit to do with the flip, and so I guess I have to talk about it a little bit. It's, yes, women do seem to have more power in dating when they're late teens and 20s, right? Because, they're young, they're attractive, and they have the ability to say no. That's really what it is. And a lot of men, don't like that. They don't like the fact that they have to work so hard and they can put in all this work and get rejection, because that's kind of the opposite what we're taught in America, right? We're taught if you work hard, you put in the correct effort, and you do the right things, you say the right things, and you get rewarded. But in dating, it's not like that. You could do everything right. You could be a guy who's doing well in school. You could have a job, you could do this, you could do that. Everything that society tells you should do, go up to a woman who knows you have all these positive qualities and characteristics, and she could be like, nope, not interested. And you could do it 100 times and you could get 100 rejections. So I understand as a man how it can be really frustrating, especially when you're young. Especially, like I said, when you're especially in your 20s, when you're old enough to go to the bar or club scene, and it can be a battle, and I worry about this because there's these new groups, and I think it's always existed, this attitude, but now they've actually given themselves names, like the men going their own way, and a lot of that doesn't just have to do with women being able to reject men. It has to do with how feminism has affected society and things in a negative way, according to them. The way the court systems are kind of skewed, especially family courts are skewed towards women, about how women can, you can marry somebody and then you can lose half your income if you get divorced, and she can divorce you for any reason she wants. But that happens to women too, just not as much, It's kind of like black people have been convicted of hate crimes, just not as much, it does happen. And then there are even like more like intense groups, like the incel movement. I just found out about this, man. This is men, they call themselves involuntarily celibate. So men who want to have relations with women, they want to, to be with women, and they just can't find a way to do it. Whether that's women not, just rejecting them, at a very high rate, or just not wanting them, or maybe something's with them to where they don't feel they can approach women. I don't know exactly what all the reasons are, but they feel that, it's somehow they're being victimized by the fact that women have such power. They have all the power in their terms over sexuality, human sexuality. And so that is it's a very weird thing, because there's some that have gone so extreme that they think that the government should enslave women pretty much and give them to men as property. There's a politician running right now, and I forget what state it is. I think it's like Virginia or something, where he wrote that, I mean, he's not going to win. He's like a total far, off the wall extremist, but that, women should be the property of their fathers, and then they should be the property of another man, basically like chattel. And it's so weird. It's like, it's hard to believe that people think in such extreme terms. And if I could do anything to help you as a man not become that way, I'll give it my best shot. So, because we don't want that. And I think a lot of that starts with confidence. And I know this is very cliche, and it's, women are attracted to confidence, and I don't, and I want to like kind of acknowledge, because even though obviously the vast majority of men, even the vast majority of men who find they're having trouble with dating, don't feel, like the people I just mentioned, like the incels and the men going their own way type of people. But I do think that there is just the average guy feels frustrated, from time to time. And I don't want to just hit you with cliches like, well, this is what women want, because I think that kind of feeds into that narrative of that women have all the power. Let me be real with you. Women don't have a lot of power, man. You don't want to trade places with them. I keep telling you this, and I know it's hard for you to believe if you're out there and you're 23 and, man, you've been trying to hook up since high school and it's never happened, and you're not like the cool guy on campus or the cool guy even at your work, and women who you even think, and we do this as men, we obsess, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but we get it in our heads that we're entitled to certain things, and then it doesn't happen, and we get angry, we think it's a woman's fault. Trust me, you don't want to trade places with women. And I said this on the first dating podcast. I said this on Dating for Women. I'm a black man in the United States, and I would not trade places with the wealthiest white woman in this country. I would not, because the things that a woman has to put up with on a day-to-day basis is nothing that I would want to trade places with. And it's also very superficial when we think about women, and this goes to our obsession a little bit, and I'm going to have a whole section on that. But when we talk about the women who have all this power, we're usually thinking about the most attractive women that we know, right? We're not talking about the woman who's, let's just be in superficial terms. We're not talking about the woman who's 5'3", 230 pounds. We don't think that she has a lot of power, and you're not jumping, to get her phone number. So how does she feel? We're not thinking about that. We're thinking about, the most superficially attractive woman who doesn't give us their number. You know what I mean? And then we think, oh, well, we've been wronged. No, there's a lot of women out there who have a lot of problems with dating, who have a lot of low self-esteem for whatever reason. It could be past childhood experiences or past trauma, or it could be just superficial reasons of the way they look. And if a woman is not attractive to us, we're not going out of our way to try to date her, And she's not saying, oh, that men should be enslaved and she should, we should be doing housework. Well, I think maybe they do that a little bit. No. Again, my wife's not here, so I can make those jokes. But yeah, we're usually thinking about the hot chicks, right? And how they have power over us. We're not thinking about the average to below average looking girls. And I'm not saying that as an insult to them. I'm just saying that we put such a high price on superficiality that we think that we're entitled to these, and I said the same thing to the women in the last podcast, going back to Dungeons and Dragons. If you are a second level thief, why do you think you deserve a 30th level fighter? It's that simple. And that goes for women and that goes for men. And, if I'm not saying that you don't have a right to happiness and things, but I also, like I said in the last podcast, you can't seek happiness. Happiness is a byproduct. It's a byproduct of good work. So when we talk about confidence, confidence comes from what you're good at. And now a lot of people think, well, I don't work, at Apple. I'm not an Apple engineer. I'm not a professional football player or basketball player. I'm not even a personal trainer. I don't have a great body or whatever. All right, man, come on, you're a man. I don't care what you're good at. You can draw confidence from it. I don't care if you are the best ice cream truck driver in your neighborhood. If that's what you do and you're good at it, and you believe that, then confidence will come from that. You know, if you drive an ice cream truck for a living, and you walk into a bar on a Saturday night, and you talk to a girl, and it's like, yeah, I drive an ice cream truck, and you say it with pride. If she detects that you think that you're a loser, then she's going to think you're a loser. And that doesn't matter if you drive an ice cream truck. The ice cream truck has nothing to do with it. You know, you could work at Merrill Lynch and be making $700,000 a year, and you could be dressed in the best clothes. And if you think, I'm a loser because I should have been made partner by now or whatever, then that insecurity is still going to come off. So that's one thing. Another thing is that men have the ability to do things in dating that women don't. So, and I'm not saying that this is fair either, but I'm saying it's true. You, as a man, if you are let's say, I don't know. I said this in the last podcast. As a professional, I had a professional job. I could date clerical. And nobody cared if I was dating somebody who was like a secretarial level worker, and I made twice as much as they did, And I don't want to call it dating down because that's feeding into that social stratification thing, and it's like that's something that's not really what I'm about, because I don't think dating somebody who makes less money is dating down. I know a lot of men who date women who make more than them, and I think that's fine. I don't think there should be any stigma attached to that. But in society, though, that's something that we can do easier than women. So if you are, let's say, a college student and, you're in your sophomore, junior year or whatever, and you're dating you could go to the Walmart and date the hottest woman at Walmart. She's going to think you're a catch. A woman who's in college who does that, all her friends are going to ridicule her. For the most part. I'm not saying, I'm making generalizations because that's what podcasts are for. But you could do that. So you actually have a larger dating pool than women do, even though women do have the right of rejection, or at least, it seems that way in their 20s, and that until the flip comes, right? So don't beat up on yourself too much. Don't become an incel. You can do this. You just got to find it within yourself to kind of pull out these things and use the society that has kind of been gifted to men for thousands of years since the beginning of whatever. I use it to your advantage, and I'll say that when it comes to dating, because I believe you should use any advantage you have, even if it's not fair, because no advantage is fair. That's why it's an advantage. And confidence is probably the first of the three things I would say to men in their 20s. So, I did three things for women in their 20s and then three things for women in their 30s. Well, let's structure this one the same way. So what would be the second thing for men in their 20s? The second thing would be realize that men have the ability to obsess on a single thing. And this leads to a lot of things. So a lot of, anthropologists, sociologists, there is some disagreement on this, because a lot of people have used this to say why men have succeeded in the STEM fields like engineering, science and math and stuff, because we can obsess on, and this is the theory. I'm not saying this is absolutely true, but this is the theory, that we can obsess on a single project or a single thought and take it to its logical conclusion and be very selfish in that pursuit, therefore taking something from A to Z and not letting a lot of things getting our way. We can be very obsessive. If you know anybody who's entrepreneurial, and I'm not saying that women can't have those types of characteristics, but most of the men I know who are entrepreneurial, I have some of my best friends have their own businesses, but I gotta say they're exhausting. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm the type of person who made sure I had a secure 9 to 5 first, and then I have my entrepreneurial projects on the side, There's some people who just like, I am not working for the man. I am doing my own thing, and man, it is exhausting. And it's to the point like I used to work with some people. I'm not gonna blast them out because I don't want to hurt their feelings or anything, and I'm not trying to hurt their feelings. That's not the intent. But I know people who are men who, when they start their businesses and they hire people, they don't understand why their employees or people who have decided to partner with them, to a lesser extent, don't have as much passion for their business as they do. And that's hard for me to explain to people, because I had friends that'd be like, they'd get mad, like, Brian, do you want to do this with me this weekend? Or Brian, can you do this for me this weekend? And I'm not talking about any, and there's probably people out there thinking I'm talking about them. I'm talking about probably a group of 10 different guys. And it's like, dude, I'm not supposed to. Like, if this is your baby, why would I have more passion for your child than you? Either that means you're a bad parent or I'm a sucker. One of the two, right? If not both. Only you should have that much passion for your project. So, but it's that obsessiveness that kind of creates a lot of the problems that men have in dating. It creates this friend zone thing, right? It's because the friend zone happens when we are so obsessed with one particular female that we just won't let it go. No matter what she says, even if she says she wants to be friends, and when we get mad, and then we'll still hang out with her, but we still want that intimate type of relationship that she's not willing to give. And I think it's dumb. One, no woman's a goddess. You're giving that one woman way too much power. Way too much power. Now me, I never mind being friends. I've been friend zoned before, and I didn't mind it. Why? Why didn't I mind it? Because I got to hang out with her, and then I got to hook up with her friends. Because my wife hates it when I tell these stories. But again, this is from, like 15 to 20 years ago, sometimes. There's this one girl who kind of friend zoned me, and I was like, fine. I hung out with her, and we would go places together, I was like, oh, yo, Brian, you're so cool. You do this, the typical friend zone stuff, Brian, I need a ride home, but I wasn't like obsessing with her though. I was just like, okay, you want to be my friend? I'll treat you like a friend. I'll treat you like my dude friend. I would give my guy friend a ride home, and I would do it. But here's the thing. She'd take me to parties and stuff, and she'd go off and whatever. But then she would leave me with her friends, and then I would end up hooking up with some of her friends. I hooked up with like 2 of her friends, and then when it became apparent that I really was kind of hanging out with her because she had some really attractive friends, one night when we were both drinking, we hooked up. The friend zone got smashed, literally. Oh my God, I'm bad. Okay. So, but I mean, that wasn't my intention to hang out with her to eventually, hook up with her. But that just ended up being kind of a byproduct of that type of relationship. We're still friends. I'm married now. She's married now. She has a kid. She has a great husband. She lives on the East Coast. We're still Facebook friends and all that. But yeah, it's our obsessiveness that kind of creates these things. And so another thing that we're obsessed with, and I wish somebody asked me to make a whole podcast about this, and I actually probably should have included it in the Dating for Women. But when women make these lists, okay, this is what I think about the list. When women have this list of what they want in a man. And usually it's immature women, and it's ridiculous. But men get caught up in it. It's like, women, and they come out these magazines. Oh, I gotta be this, and this for women to be attracted to me. Again, if you're the best ice cream truck driver in Carson, then you feel that, and that's your passion. That's gonna come off. That confidence is gonna show through whatever clothes you're wearing. It's gonna show through that bleached white uniform with that little stupid paper white hat. I'm just joking. But that confidence that confidence becomes your uniform if you really feel it. If you are the best, B student at San Diego State, hey, rock it. whatever you are. If you're the best stock boy at Walmart, rock it. I don't care what it is. You know, when people say find out what you're good at, find out what you're good at now. It doesn't mean that that's your goal and that's where you're going to stay forever. But if you're good at something, I don't care. Even if you're a nerd, there are girl nerds. My cousin met his current fiance at BlizzCon. And she's cute. She's beautiful, you know? And it's like, that's BlizzCon. That's nerd heaven. That BlizzCon is for the people that are too gaming oriented to go to Comic-Con. You know, like Comic-Con is too mainstream. You know, I'm going to BlizzCon, you know? So it doesn't matter because he has confidence and yeah, he met a beautiful woman and, you know, and it's working out and they're getting married. So back to the list. I have a theory about it. First of all, I don't really think it's real. I think a list is something that women who haven't found the right guy make up so they can tell their friends that, oh, this guy didn't have this on the list, so that's why we broke up. Or we're not talking anymore because he didn't have this. Or he didn't have this. He doesn't seem very ambitious. He doesn't seem this. It's basically something, it comes out of insecurity. It's basically what foster kids used to do when I was a social worker. They would act up. They would do things because they had already been kicked out of so many homes that when they finally get into a new home, they would act up because they don't want the surprise of being asked to move again. They would rather have it on their terms. At least they know it's coming. So they would act crazy. They would smash a television. They would do something really, you know, off the wall. So they would get kicked out because at least it wouldn't be a shock or a surprise. At least they won't get comfortable and then get kicked out. So to me, that's why women use the list. And the list could have anything on it. You know, it could say, oh, I want a man who is, you know, 6 feet tall, at least 6 feet tall, who makes this amount of money, who is this religion, has this family, this stuff. And I'm not saying that none of those things could be truly important to them, but in the modern age, when I see people who are really happy, and they're just a mix of all kinds of things. They don't belong on any list, you know. So that's what I have to say for that. And I know I'm eventually going to have to do another dating for women to come back and tell them why that list is stupid, because I don't want to get too much into it here because this is for men. But as for a man, don't worry about it. Don't worry about if women have lists. It doesn't matter. Your confidence beats the list. It trumps it. Okay, so the third thing is patience, because the flip is coming, right? And if you've listened to the last two podcasts, you know, age 35, whatever you're doing now, if you keep knocking down those goals, you keep breaking through those doors, breaking through those barriers, as a man, you will be attractive. And when you become into your 30s, and we'll start talking about the 30s in a second, the flip will come, and even though you'd be that little nerd who was like in the friend zone in your 20s, that's going to change, 10 years from now, So have that patience and concentrate on yourself. The more you work on yourself, the more attractive you are. And again, it's like I said in the first dating podcast, I used to find women to be more accessible when I would go to a function, whether it was a club, whether it was a party, whether it was a sporting event, wherever. When I was just out with my friends and I was just having a fun time, laughing, joking, doing whatever, and I wasn't even thinking about girls. And that's actually when I got the most phone numbers. That's actually when girls would approach me. So, and maybe because that kind of appears like confidence, maybe that's why. If you're not after them, you're not hunting them down, you look more attractive, because it's almost like the people who get the loans from the bank, the people who don't look like they need the loans, they come dressed really nice. You almost have to like look like you don't need the money, and maybe that principle is in effect. But yeah, But again, the third thing for men in their 20s is patience, and when I say patience, that means don't just sit there and wait, but work on your own goals and work and accomplish things, and then have patience that, the women will come in the process of you working on yourself. Okay? So, men in their 30s. What do I want to say? Number one, and men in their 30s, again, because the flip happens in their 30s, it's a little bit harder. I almost have to tell them to turn it back a little bit, right? And there's a lot of other things I would have said to men in their 20s, like don't get married, don't marry your high school sweetheart. Don't just jump on the first thing you do, because if you are, and I am digressing a little bit, but if you are somebody who is young and you find a hard time meeting a woman, and you're on that incel border type of personality of in stage in life or whatever, yeah, it's very easy for the one girl who does say yes for you to be like, okay, I'm going to put a ring on it. No. And I know that's easy for me to say, but I really, really make sure that's the right one if you're going to do that. And when I say by make sure is the right one, she's not the right one. No, what I'm really saying is you got to be sure. And that confidence, if you truly build that confidence, you try to build that confidence first. And again, concentrate on the things you are good at. Concentrate inward, not outward. And if you have confidence, you're going to be able to walk away from that deal. It's the same thing when, like, again, I always use buying a car as an analogy. I don't know why I use that so much. I guess it's because so many people do it. Yes, it could be a brand new, 6 Series BMW, and they're going to say, yeah, it's 10% interest, but you can afford it, and blah blah blah, and it's the last one on the lot, and you might be able to technically afford it in the sense that you have the money for it, every month. And you might have to like downgrade to an apartment in the hood to get that car, but don't do it, man. You have to be able to walk away, and in your 30s. I'm going to have to reverse this and say, stop walking away so much. So to men in their 30s, what I would like to say is don't become addicted to the booty, man. Don't. I know I'm being weird in this one. Again, I told you, talking about men is a lot harder to be playing it straight down the middle, because first of all, as men, we're hilarious, and and women think we're weird, and we are, and it's and we're different. We are visual. We do like sex more than women. I don't care what women's magazine tells you that. The fact that no woman likes sex as much as the man. No, the woman who likes sex the most in the world is probably like on the level of your average dude. I don't care if she's a porn star or somewhere. I don't know, whatever. She's still wouldn't be the level of your average, college sophomore as a guy. So I don't even like hearing that. It's just ridiculous. Yes, don't become addicted, to just getting new girls all the time, and that's what I mean. Because first of all, no addiction is good. An addiction is something that is not only habitual, but it's something that has a negative impact on your life. So, we used to talk about this when we were in our drug and alcohol classes in college, when I was studying behavioral science, and people would come up with these ridiculous things. Well, wouldn't you being addicted to running wouldn't that be good? No, because if it falls on those, criteria, it's habitual and it has a negative influence on your life. If it has a negative influence on your life, then it's not good, right? It's negative. That means negative means negative. Well, what about eating vegetables? What if you were addicted to vegetables? Look, and then you would have to break it down. If you would lie to your family and sneak out at night and steal money from your grandmother to eat vegetables, do you think that's a good thing? No. No, any addiction is bad. Any addiction. I don't care what you're addicted to. And being addicted to having new girls all the time, and that can become addictive, especially if you're a guy who in your 30s and there's a lot of I don't want to say women are more desperate in their 30s, but first of all, the flip is coming, or it has already come, depending on where in your 30s you are. There's women who've been through the ringer with just bad guys, right? Or not even bad guys, but just disappointing guys or disappointing relationships. I'm not saying it's necessarily all the man's fault or the woman's fault. Let's just say they've been disappointed or they've made bad decisions themselves. You know, they went after guys who they were just really attracted to in their 20s, but they found out, oh, this guy will never have a sustainable job, or this guy is an alcoholic, or you know, he used to be the cool guy who parties, but then when we got married and had a kid, he just kept drinking, you know. Or, you know, it could even be worse, right? You can just imagine all the horror stories. Again, you don't want to trade places with women. I'm telling you, man. You think you do just because you're not getting any right now, but that's, yeah, it's not a, I mean, I told you, the female friend zone is a lot worse than the male friend zone, and the female friend zone is actually getting into a relationship and getting a guy that says he loves you or whatever, and being with him for 10 years, and then him just saying, no, I'm not interested anymore. And now you're 10 years older, you may have a kid, you may even be a really bad guy and burn through your credit. I've seen that too, you know. And now you're back at even worse than before you had a guy, and you're in your 30s, and now the guy who's addicted to getting new girl after new girl after new girl sees 100,000 of these type of women, and he's taking advantage of them. Which leads me to the next thing is don't abuse the flip. So that's kind of they kind of go together. So now that if you're a single guy in your 30s, which I was, and with a professional job, it's very easy to abuse that power. And again, I know a lot of women have power in their early 20s, mid 20s, even late 20s. Man, being a single guy, even a guy, I don't care if you're 5'6", 5'2", and you have your own place and a job, man, you are attractive to a good portion of this country, and it's very easy to take advantage of that. And what do I mean by that? Because these women are looking, and again, the clock, right? We talk about the clock and how women, they want to have children, or even if they have children, they want to settle down, and a lot of that's superficial, and I think a lot of that is imposed on us by society. I don't think a lot of women need to pay as much attention to that as they do, but we do. And I'm just saying how things are. And if you're a single guy in your 30s, you could take advantage of that very, very easily. It's not hard. It's not hard. And what do I mean by take advantage of that? Because I just told you earlier in the podcast that you should use any advantage you have, right? Well, what I mean is that I was thinking about this the other day because I was wondering about why am I so happy right now, and why am I in a really good relationship. And I figured out that, and I came up with this saying, and it's going to sound very biblical and wise, and because I like to sound like that, because I know I'm not. But a true king has but one wife, but many sisters. And what do I mean by that? I mean, there is the sexual beauty, physical part of women, of femininity, that we can take advantage of. But when we become addicted to that, and because that gets old, the most attractive women, what's the old saying? You see the most attractive woman you've ever seen, there's some guy that's tired of her, and it's because it's the superficialness of it. It's like we're not looking deeper, we're not looking beyond the skin. And what I found when I had said, like, I was a social worker, 80% women. Yes, did I date some of my coworkers? Again, yes, I did, and it wasn't because I'm the hottest guy there. It's because I was one of the only guys there. But at same token, I did meet a lot of wonderful women who became like sisters to me, and it was never anything dating related or sexual related at all. As a matter of fact, I'm friends with their husbands, and then their families, and their mothers, and their children. And getting their children into jiu-jitsu and stuff, and it made me feel really good. It made me feel like this uncle in this, and I don't have kids, so it gave me like the ability to kind of be a parent without having to be a parent in a lot of ways, and it's made me really strong and in all kinds of areas of my life, whether it's jobs, special projects, just people who, as far as networking and stuff, and just feeling like when I was a single man, because none of my family lived in San Diego when I was in my 30s, just having that support network of these families who just kind of took me in is so powerful, and added to that confidence that I had in my 20s, and added to just this sense of belonging that I felt like I could do anything. And if I only looked at women as just these conquests, I don't think I would even be able to do a podcast, or even have the ability to have been promoted in my career as far as I have, or have gone back to school to get my master's, or any of these things, because I would be stuck in that superficial addiction that is really limiting. It's so limiting. I know guys who are still there, and they're older than me. I know guys in their 50s who are just kind of like, looking for that new hot thing, and they'll get it, because they now they have the game to do it, because they've been doing it for 30 years, and it's like, but when is that going to end? There's no light at the end of that tunnel, because they're in love with the tunnel, so it's, I don't want to say that they're sad, because I know that the guys who in their early 20s who aren't getting anything from women, and they're being rejected, they're like, oh yeah, I'll trade places with him in a minute. I guess from anything from this podcast, I just want you to get that there's a balance, and being a guy between the ages of 20 and 50, you got to keep balancing your priorities, and not getting stuck, and not going down rabbit holes, and not becoming addicted to these superficial things, but at the same time having the ego and the confidence to move forward in your own personal endeavors. And everything I'm saying is very complicated, because it sounds like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. No, everything I'm saying needs to happen almost simultaneously. You constantly have to be thinking about all these things, which is hard, again, because men like obsessing on one thing. We like to have one goal, we like to attack it, and then we like to complete it, then move to the next goal. And think kind of this multitasking thing, which is more what they say as more of a feminine trait, is hard for us. But I think if we kind of learn how to do it just a little bit, I think we'll all be a lot more satisfied in our lives, and a lot more accomplished with the things that we're trying to do. I guess, and the third thing, and I have one more thing after the third thing, but the third thing is make peace with your basic instincts. And again, this kind of goes to the addiction of getting new girls, but sex and violence are kind of both basic instincts, right? By the time you're in your 30s, and again, I disclosed before, yes, I did get in one street fight when I was in my 30s, but we're not supposed to be, right? We're not supposed to get in street fights when we're not supposed to get in street fights at all. But you're definitely not supposed to get into them in your 30s, and definitely not in your 40s. So, because we learn to control our violent natures, and back when we were in high school, somebody looked at you the wrong way or disrespected you, your peers and their peers would encourage you guys to like butt heads and beat each other up. Martial arts has helped me a lot dealing with that. Yes, I think I had a lot of violent thoughts when I was younger. I was very angry, and not angry like just at life in general, like a lot of people. I don't want people to think I was that type of person, but I was very much into fairness, and like if you treated me unfair, I thought you needed to suffer a consequence for it, and it was my responsibility to make you suffer for that. I realized it's not my responsibility. I was just talking to my wife yesterday, and I told her that, it's kind of like the road rage type of thing. I'm like, she's like, yeah, her perspective on road rage is like, well, why should you get mad at somebody if they're beneath me? Why would I give them my time of day? It's kind of snotty. No, I love my wife, but that's what she said, and I was like, well, my perspective on getting angry at someone cutting you off or something in the road is because I've been driving for at least 25 years, and I've probably done a lot of crappy stuff on the road myself. So if somebody does it to me, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It means that they're human. It doesn't. They didn't get out of bed that morning and said, I wonder how many people I can cut off today. No, it's probably they don't know the area or whatever. And oh my God, they're headed for an interview and they realize that if they don't switch lanes really quick, that they're going to miss that freeway entrance or that exit. And they're going to be late to work or late to an interview or whatever, or late picking up their kids from school. And it's a 6-to-6 program, and she's a single mom. And if she's late, they're going to charge her an extra $25, which she doesn't have. So, all these scenarios that happen to us. They happen to me. I mean, maybe not the exact same ones, but there's reasons I've cut people off. And it wasn't because I wanted to make somebody mad. It's because I made a mistake, And so when you think of when you have that empathy, and we go back to empathy, which is the main focus of all my podcasts, I think, chill out, man. And so I'm talking about that from a violent standpoint. Same thing applies to a sexual standpoint. Yes, we still have these tendencies inside of us. Yes, that new girl at the office that knew that it's always going to be there. I'm married. It's there. We learn to control it. We learn to acknowledge it. Yes, that's a hot girl, blah, 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 and you move on. You realize that you go back to the lessons hopefully you learned in your 20s, which is like you don't obsess on everything that's beautiful, on every shiny little new thing, and you move on. You go on with your day. And it's okay to acknowledge it, at least to yourself, but you don't act on every little thing, and hopefully you can learn this before you get into a long-term relationship, because then real problems can happen, right? So learn to control your basic instincts. I'm not even saying control them. I'm just saying find peace with them, right? Be at peace with them. Acknowledge, know that they're just instincts. Yes, some people use instincts as an excuse to do bad things, but I just say that we all have them. Women have them, Hey, if your wife meets a celebrity, if your wife meets, one of the Hemsworth brothers, or whatever, you hopefully she would think it was cool, and then it would be a cool story and nothing would happen, right? That you would hope, right? So we expect that out of others, and so let's all do the same thing and treat each other with that respect. So and the last thing is, and this is big, and it really has nothing to do with dating for men. It has to do with men's actions and how we view women. That superficial stuff. Everything I've talked about so far has kind of been this superficial nature of how we view women. Well, that includes our daughters. Don't raise princesses, because when you do that, you're screwing up the dating pool for the next generation. I'm not saying don't adore and love your daughter, but if you treat her in a way, you raise her in a way that she is above other people, that she has expectations out of the world that are just unrealistic, and the world's not going to give them to her when she's an adult, because the only person who's giving them to her is you. You're setting her up for failure. Put your daughter in sports. That's the one thing, because she'll first of all, she'll learn how to compete, and she'll be humiliated. And she'll have that kind of humiliation that guys have when they're in sports, where ooh, I don't want to feel that again. I'm going to try harder next time, and I'm going to work for it. And she's not going to look for a man to give her something, to give her some sense of self-esteem. She's going to go out there and she's going to take it for herself. And that type of woman is very attractive, and that type of woman is not going to fall. I know I'm going a little bit back into the female dating thing, but I think this is very important for us as men. My wife and I are considering adoption, and if I adopt a girl, I got to tell you, man, she's going right into jiu-jitsu because I want her to know that I want her to realize her own power very early on, and that she has a father that supports her, a father that loves her, but even when I'm not there, she's powerful. And that type of person is going to be the type of person who, first of all, has the empathy for these incel type men in their 20s. So even, I'm not saying that she's gonna she has to say yes to them, but she's gonna at least understand who they are and where they're coming from, and she'll sit her friend down, and she's not gonna just put them in a friend zone. She's gonna be like, look, she's gonna be blunt with them. Look, I'm not attracted to you. You're not a match for me. I'm your friend, but if you don't like that, kick rocks. To me, that's a lot better than somebody who's just like, oh, you're cute, you're like a brother, let's go out drinking, but no, you can't kiss me, man. And it creates all this kind of confusion. So a woman who actually knows her own power and is not afraid of it is the best type of thing that we can raise, and I think we have to do that as men. And I think a lot of women, the opposite sex parent, the way they raise their sons is very important, and we can talk about that in another podcast. But the way men raise their daughters is super important, and that's pretty much it. So I'm already at 46 minutes. I try to keep my podcast to around a half an hour, and I have a lot more that I could talk about men. And I have to admit, I was a little bit nervous because I don't want to get into men dating because I'm a man, and man, I got little cousins and that are women and that are females, and some are women now, and I have sisters who are going to talk to me, and of course I have a wife and a mom, and you don't want them to think badly of you, right? So, but but I think it's important that women hear at least a little bit about what guys talk about when we're by ourselves. So. And I'll try to do more of that in the future, kind of give different people different windows into, the opposite gender and stuff. And that's kind of the point of my own mic podcast. I want to give you a window and some empathetic views into the lives of other people, regardless of gender, maybe different socioeconomic stratas and different political affiliations and even different religions and whatever. So we could all understand each other a little bit better, and let's just make this big machine that's called society work a little bit more efficiently. So that's dating for men. I know the dating topic is going to continue, so don't be surprised if I do another podcast or two or more on this. I'll try to take a break from it for now, but this is Brian P., and hope you guys are doing well. Thanks.